Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Rafael McMaster with us, and I'm so excited to chat with you today. I know that we're going to learn so much about you, so much from you today, but Rafael's in this creative director space, works with youth, helps them with healing and creative expression. And I'm not a mom, but I have a niece, she's 7, who I love dearly. And I'm just so excited for you to be here today so that we can have a chat about how to support our youth through healing and art expression. I'm so grateful to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Lunden. I have a feeling we're going to have a real good time.
Yeah. And I love your sweatshirt. For those of you listening, you can't see the sweatshirt, but for those of you that are watching, it says breathe and learn.
Could it
breathe
be so
and
simple?
learn. What a mantra.
Simple? Back to the basics, baby. Back to the basics.
Yeah. And I'm just so curious to learn more from you today. And why don't we start with how you got started in this space? What inspired you to work with youth and this creative art expression? And how did we get here to this conversation today?
Sure thing. Well, at age 35, 10 years ago is when I had my awakening. I was in enough pain, enough spiritual pain and emotional pain and even physical pain, thinking to myself, this can't be all there is, right? And that's when, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Eckhart Tolle, Brene Brown, all of these amazing teachers, started showing up in my life, or I was being able to be open-minded or I got connected to that message. And in learning that message and transforming my psyche, my personality, my life, all of the things, my energy, I was sitting there pondering why in the world, this idea of awareness, this Eckhart Tolle classic, to be the aware observer of the thoughts, this lesson that I am not my thoughts. I'm the one having the thoughts, observing the thoughts. Sounds basic, but no one had laid that at my feet. So I was running around as a 35-year-old, stressed out, listening to everything my brain was saying and feeling overwhelmed by reality without much control over my emotions or my thoughts. And I remember sitting there very specifically on this tool of awareness to be the aware observer of my thoughts, going, I made it all the way through high school and college. How come nobody's laid this at my feet before? And now that I know more, I realize that is kind of what they talk about with mindfulness, but I don't know that mindfulness was brought to my attention in that way, where I understood it as my thoughts are like programs and I am the steward of those programs. I am not the thoughts. And so in that moment, I felt this deep sense of being and purpose and urge that this is my purpose in my lifetime. This is the point of my life, and it's the vision for my future, this life of service. And my point on this planet is to serve through putting these tools in as many youth hands as possible. Because once a person begins living life as the conscious, aware observer of their thoughts, understanding their thoughts are programs, and they can change those programs, and that my thoughts now becomes my attitudes and energies later, I'm witnessing hundreds, if not thousands of kids now here in South LA County that are becoming conscious, becoming awake and aware observers, because we have the opportunity to lay these tools at their feet in a way that works, is resonant, and is native to how they think in the language that they use. Locally, the teens here, they don't call it awareness. They call it mind watching.
Okay.
Mind watching. They're observing the brain, right? Mind watching. In fact, one of them drew an illustration of it that we put into the book that we just published, right? Where, and I know again that some won't be able to see this.
Oh, I love it. For those of you not watching, it's a picture of a brain with an eyeball watching the brain. And then there's like little speech bubbles that say, I'm happy, I'm scared, this makes me angry, I'm so upset. That's beautiful.
And the deeper understanding, when I'm saying to myself, I'm anxious, well, that is running a program that will make me more anxious. That's at the crux of it. I can't transmute that thought or transform it or transcend it if I am the thought, if I'm enraptured in it. But if there's enough space for me to like, whoa, I am anxious, that's going to make me more anxious. Let me replace that with, ooh, I can feel my anxiety creeping up. I'm going to use my tools to stay calm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't know that you were familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza. I love him. I talk about him all the time. I've been to a bunch of his meditation retreats and week longs. And at that, I love how you said that, where you're like, you got to this point. I think I went to my first week long retreat when I was like 31. But it was that moment of like, oh, okay, here I am in my 30s having this moment, this aha moment, this, oh my gosh, why didn't I know this sooner? And I don't have kids. I don't know if you're a parent, but I have my niece. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, all these ways that I felt stuck in my life, I want her to have the opportunity to learn something new, right? And this program, I wasn't taught that. It was just like, you got to do this, and this is how you got to be, and this is the thing, and this is why. And, before we hopped on, you mentioned like, oh, this is, a God thing. This is divine. So I'm assuming you have a spiritual practice, as do I. But growing up in a very traditional Christian household, a lot of the answers were just like, oh, we'll just like pray about it, or because God said so, or because God made it that way. And I think that just limits our thought process so much. It limits the places that we can go within our mind, so that we don't have to feel stuck waiting for something to come and like tap us on our head and make it all go away. It's like, how do we understand that we have this program? And I know you're working with youth, and the verbiage and language that you're using with me now is very familiar to me. I hear it, I resonate. Do you come in with that same type of language with kids? Like, how do you help them understand, like, hey, this is mind watching, this is a program. What you're thinking is not necessarily who you are. And that's something I'm working on as well, as not internalizing some of these thoughts.
Daily practice. It's daily
practice. Yeah. Yeah. So how do we talk to the youth about this? What's that entry conversation? Are they telling their friends and coming to you, or like, how are you laying that at their feet, to use your words?
Sure. Well, to practice the tool of awareness, and we state these as tools. We focus on 7 tools. That way it's tangible. A lot of the SEL, the social emotional learning programs out there, they talk about the emotions, about the experiences, but they fall short of putting tangible tools in the person's hand that they feel they can get, more effective at. So very tools based. And we teach that first tool of awareness, a la Eckhart Tolle. You are not your thoughts. You're the one having your thoughts, right? And putting in those terms it does resonate with the youth. And the, a lot of the local parents here really just call it, this is Dr. Joe for kids. This is what this is. This is Eckhart Tolle and Dr. Joe for kids, right? And me too, I went to a bunch of his workshops, and I said, okay, then how do we take this week long and consolidate it into something that's more tangible and easy to access for a 12-year-old, right? So the third tool we teach is the tool of intention, which is really, so Dr. Joe, know what you're shooting for, create a visualization, 3D holographic vision, sight, sound, smell, touch, feel. So you'll look in our gallery or in our creative space, and you'll see 30 youth with their hands on their heart, eyes closed, visualizing full dimensional intentions of what they want to come true, and then fusing it with an elevated emotion, falling in love with it, right? And instead of ever saying meditation to them, this is a visualization exercise. Instead of them doing yoga, they're doing focused movement, right? And so it's figuring out that languaging. Now, how did we dial in the languaging for this book and this program? Well, we created it with them. Because although our nonprofit, Indivisible Arts, is 9 years young, the development of this program began in pandemic. It began with our pod of, 18, 7 to 22-year-olds, when realized, my goodness, this next generation is going to need some tools like stat, right? And so then it was working with local therapists and counselors and the head of a local health district, executive coaches, a shaman, all of us getting together, say, okay, if we could put 7 tools together as a toolkit, what would they be? Now, There's hundreds of tools, so many tools, an endless amount, particularly if you're creative. And we felt 7 was a good number, that it would feel, learnable in a way that wouldn't require memorizing. When
Yeah, and like
something's
easily accessible. If you have
That's
100
right.
of them, it's like, what are you going to
You get
pull
lost
first?
in it. That's right. But if it's doesn't need to be memorized, then it won't be forgotten. And we're teaching these in an experiential way where they focus on one of the tools for 30 minutes in our consciousness portion of our class, which we call Jedi mind training. Once again, meeting them where they're at with their language. And then they have a full hour of creative laboratory time where in this 3,800 square foot creative laboratory called Resin, which is our home, our headquarters for our nonprofit Indivisible Arts, there's a music studio and a fashion lab, which is where I'm sitting right now, design studio, 3D printers, 3D design, spray paint alley, photography, sculpting, pretty much anything you can think of creatively is what we have here. So when they come here after school, they get a full 90 minutes. And the first 30 minutes is mental and emotional health tools and consciousness training. The last hour is creative play, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a place where even big kids want to be, like me. But I want to back up to that first tool that you mentioned of becoming aware of your thoughts.
Yeah.
And I've worked with people for a really long time, and I know that you have too, where it's like we have this thought and then we immediately react. Like there's no space in between of like, oh, okay, I might be thinking a negative thought about somebody. I might be thinking a negative thought about myself. I might be thinking that it was really funny. I was leaving an audio message for my best friend. We leave audio messages for each other all the time. And I was just like, man, I just like last weekend was full. And I just like, I didn't even unpack from where I was. I was like trying to clean up the mess of my space and all the things. And she left me a voicemail back and she was like, don't stress on the mess. Don't stress on the mess. And it was just so funny because that little like whatever little song that she sang, it reminded me of like, okay, there's this mess and I'm choosing to make it mean X, Y, or Z about me, right? And that moment in time where we can just observe the thought. Like I grew up in a family where like if there was one speck on the floor or one dish in the dishwasher or in the sink that wasn't in the dishwasher, I was in trouble, all the things. So understanding that programming of like, okay, well, that's how you were raised. And now you're a grown up. Sometimes there's going to be messes. And can that be okay? And even just having that dialogue around those small little phrases. And right now, my boss and our head of marketing for a restaurant company that I'm part of the executive team on, we are doing a 30-day challenge with Dr. Joe where every single day we write down all of the thoughts that we have that are keeping us stuck in the past. What thoughts, what feelings. And when we started it, I was like a little bit nervous to write down the thoughts. And I started like chunking them up too much and not writing people's names or not writing specifics. And in my head, I'm like, why was I so afraid to write down these thoughts? They're mine. This is my journal. No one's going to see it. You're just writing the stuff down. So every day we write down all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the emotions of what's preventing us from becoming the person that we want to be, what's keeping us stuck in our past. And then what thoughts and feelings do you want to feel? What is the person you're becoming? What are they thinking? How are they acting? How are they feeling? And then we do a meditation. And that's what I was literally doing right before we hopped on this. I did this. I went out to the lake by my house, sat and did my meditation. I did one called Changing Boxes, which maybe you're familiar with, a Dr. Joe meditation of changing that box, right? And he says, in the reality where the problem no longer exists. And I love that because it just reminds me of that number one, where you say like, how do we become the observer of our thoughts? That's the way I do it. That's the way I've been doing it. How do you teach the kids to do that? Are they writing their thoughts down? Are they saying them out loud?
No, they have sketchbooks and they have these books that they can write in, right? And so, it naturally might be, okay, I want everyone to write same thing as you. I want everyone to write down 5 things that frustrate you. Go. Right. And usually we're doing this particular exercise when we get to the second tool, which is around acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Accepting everything as it is and being at peace. And we talk about serenity a lot. And that acceptance is that pathway to serenity and letting go. And so, that exercise will show up we'll have, everyone in the class. So usually around 30 youth from 7 to 22. write down 5 things that you find frustrating, annoying, or undesirable. And we do it. And then they begin sharing. And so, a lot, this will occur pretty much every time with the tool of acceptance. Some kid will write down, share, okay, I hate homework. And everybody's like, yeah, homework
Same,
sucks.
same.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Right. And so I go, okay, cool. So what does it sound like when you sit down to do homework? The voices in your head say what? They say, this is going to take forever. Why did my teacher assign so many math problems? And like, I hate math, whatever it is. Right. So, okay, first off, are you that thought? And the whole class goes, no. Who are you? The one having the thought, the observer, right? It's cool hearing them all say it all out loud. And it's building this culture where they're learning this from each other, and it's become normalized. And say, okay, well, since you're not that thought, you're the one having the thought. Can you change the thought? Yes. What can you change the thought to? I am grateful I have a free education. I have a teacher who cares about me. I'm going to go to college, so I need to learn this stuff. I actually like growing and learning. And as soon as I'm done, I can go do something fun with my friends. And noticing that those 5 thought forms conjoin together as a new program instead of I hate homework, math sucks, it's going to give a completely different experience of attitude and energy and perspective for the person who's about to do their homework. Now, the value of what we've built is this. When a 10-year-old kid hears another 10-year-old kid explain this and then explain, oh, yeah, and it totally works. Like, it's what I do for homework every day. And then the high schoolers chime in, yeah, this is how I got through college exam or college, application process is making sure my mindset is right before I'm doing it. This program will change your life, right? And there, in Sanskrit, there's this word kavi, which is the sound of something that comes from truth because it's come from lived experience. The person saying it knows it, and you can tell there's an honesty to it because it's real, because the person's living through it. And so having, high schoolers and other, students, their testimony as to the efficacy and power of these tools and the transformation of their inner realm, and that this program and this stuff and Dr. Joe and Eckhart Tolle and what we're doing, it works. It really does. If I practice it, right? Sometimes it feels so simple. Is this really going to work? Yup, it totally does. Just ask anybody who's doing it and whose life has been transformed because of it. They'll testify, yeah, this is the path. It may seem simple, which is fantastic, because then it means it's at our fingertips, readily available. And a person doesn't need daily anything from anyone else to be practicing it daily. And so these kids hearing it from each other and saying it in their own words is then ultimately how we create more of this curriculum and program. And we ground it in the real life examples that they're using, because we're hearing it straight from them. So, the curriculum itself is iterative in that it's continually changing with the times and the examples that these kids are using, because that way it being able to talk about acceptance in the term of, at the beginning of pandemic, and you had to wear the mask, and it was like, I hate this thing. It's like a muzzle. And every day when you're leaving the house, you put the mask on, you reach for it, you can feel that icky feeling. But one day you reach for the mask and it was just like, whatever. You just went with it, stopped fighting it. That stop fighting part, the part of just like, yeah, it is what it is. I got to wear this to school. Helping them realize, I already know the energy of acceptance. That just like, go with the flow. It is what it is. Surrender. That was an example that a student used that the rest of the students were like, yeah, that's got it. I get it.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful when other students their age or older than them, right? It's as kids,
the
if
cool
you
high
have
schoolers.
teachers, if they're telling them, hey, this is cool to do, or this changed my life. It's very different than, an adult coming in when you're already having adults kind of tell you what to do. So that community aspect, I really resonate with.
We had a star local water polo player, Declan, who made varsity as a freshman. And he did all the visualization stuff and did everything like by the book. And he was able to talk to the other athletes saying like, this visualization stuff totally works. And I'm here to testify to it. That has a tremendous amount of power.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to go back to your example just a little bit and agree to disagree, but like, how do you teach kids to then not be in acceptance of things that they maybe want to set boundaries on? For example, a mask that feels like a muzzle. Because to me, I'm like, okay, yeah, if you do something long enough and you're told, and then you put this thing on over and over,
It's
and then
whether or
you just
not
become acceptance of it.
I,
And not to, get into that bit, but just a little bit, because in my head, I'm like, okay, with my niece, I also want her to be able to have the awareness to not accept things that she doesn't feel are in alignment with her beliefs
sure.
and values.
I don't think we're in disagreement. I think it's about the subtlety of the understanding of the tool of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance isn't about rolling over and disempowering oneself. It's about not needlessly getting frustrated or irritated about things that we can't control. And the point of the kid who in the local school system, they didn't have a choice. They had to wear a mask to school. Doesn't mean they have to like it, but complaining and losing my own serenity over it was not a helpful path. So I think acceptance is really about knowing what I can change and knowing that complaining and whining about it isn't going to possibly help my inner serenity. And I need to keep my inner serenity so that I can go get into action about the things I can change.
Mm-hmm.
So in the case of them, they didn't have a choice at their school. It doesn't mean they had to like it. And it doesn't mean they said, I'm a doormat. Well, in the case of bullying, right? If a person's having acceptance that there's a person bullying him, it doesn't mean it's okay to be bullied. It means, okay, I accept that this person is outside my hula hoop and not mine to control. And I accept there's bullies out there. And I accept that this person probably feels hurt on the inside. Hurt people. This isn't particular to me. I see this bully doing this to other kids too. Okay, now that I'm not hysterical and hyperventilating and making it all about I'm the worst person in the world, that's why he's bullying me, or any of the other stories or narratives, now I'm in a position, in a state of clarity to go talk to a teacher, talk to the principal, talk to the right person, and do the right thing. So acceptance isn't
Getting into the right state to then take action if
that's
you
right.
disagree or agree in something. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I can't if I'm trying to get into action, but I'm triggered and frustrated, it's not going to give me an optimal result. So if I can maintain my inner serenity so that I then can stand up for what I feel to be right, that is an optimal way to do that. Having acceptance that reality is the way it is, so that I then can work with it to change reality, that to me is a much more effective expression of it than the person who's yelling and ranting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's a much more effective approach. What is I'm an open book on my podcast about how I was raised and all the things. And I have great parents and I love them so much. And like, there was a lot of like, suck it up, quit your crying. You have to do it anyway. I don't care how you feel. You have to do it. Right. And I know that, everyone does the best with the tools they have. And as they grow and, parenting now is different than parenting then, all the things. But like, what about a parent now who maybe doesn't live in Southern LA and doesn't have access to send their kid there, but they're listening? And it's like, okay, so when my child comes home feeling frustrated or whatever, what's a way to pivot? Is it to have that conversation about not being your thoughts, being the observer of your thoughts?
Good place
How
to start.
can, yeah. And I know people listening to this podcast want to change and want tools. And sometimes it's like backtracking on ways that you've been, but I know that, just hushing emotions and not letting them be expressed or whatever, it's not a big deal. Like, it is a big deal. And so how is someone listening, what would be the next best steps based on what you're doing that we can give some nuggets to the listeners and parents on how they can support their kids being able to navigate these tough emotions? I mean, times are also so different than when we went to school, and with the internet and social media and all the things. I mean, I just feel like thoughts can really run rampant. I also think too about how my dad would always say the 5 most important words are to surround yourself with good people. And it seems like when you're creating this, what you've created, the facility, there's just the kids there that are helping and supporting one another, which I know is super important. If you're hanging around, kids who are, making poor choices or reacting off impulses all the time, you're going to be more of who you're around. So for the parents listening, how can they support their kids and how can they get their kids involved in a more mentally healthy environment wherever they're at?
Sure. So for starters, we have a book that's available on Amazon. right? It's only $12.
What's it called?
It's called the FundaMentaLife Tools, and these are the 7 tools,
Cool.
right? Awareness, acceptance, intention, gratitude, compassion, forgiveness, and connection. And it's a workbook, so it's meant to be written in, right? And the lessons and the tools, the illustrations, all of it have come out of this program. Using examples from the kids and quotes from them, but also it's adult grade stuff. Absolutely. And so that is an active workbook that they can have, that's available. So yeah, that is the FundaMentaLife Tools, because these 7 tools I do believe are fundamental. And it's a little bit of gap in the wiring of the school education system as far as hitting the note on these 7 tools. And so that's one opportunity. The other is much of these young leaders here, high schoolers, got together this last summer, and they built a website, a new platform to make these tools available to anybody else, regardless of where they live. They called it streamofconsciousness.life. Leave it to a bunch of high schoolers. They actually think that .life is cool. So fantastic. It's their call. So streamofconsciousness.life. And on there's a section where I explain each of these tools in a 5 to 8 minute video for each. So if you're a parent and you have a kid, and you want them to hear about the tools from maybe not you, because we all know the challenge of kids listening to, their parents, maybe they don't always pick up what their parents are saying, even though we might be saying the right things. So that's another area for support that's immediate and exists now. It's still a beta version of the site because these high schoolers are building it, and now they're back in school again. But there's enough there where these tools are there, and hearing it from other teens and other youth, all of those pieces are there. So streamofconsciousness.life. And lastly, in real time with students, with kids, with my daughter, with my kids, it is my first move is show them empathy. Just in the form of like having them feel understood. If they come home and they're explaining how their math teacher's a total jerk, my first move is, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, that must be really frustrating. And something happens once a kid just feels heard on that level. They're like, okay, I've got that out of my system.
Exhale.
Now they can hear better. And they'll just keep trying to say it in different ways until they feel heard, even if they're just saying it louder or kind of behaving in other ways. At the core, once a person feels heard, and we teach this actually as the peacemaker, as one of our things, if people are in an argument, just taking a second to be like, okay, so do you feel X because you want Y? And showing them that sense of understanding. Oftentimes that other person will be like, well, yeah. And a lot of times the argument stops because they just want to be heard. That's why they're getting louder and louder. So showing them empathy, right? And that is a helpful formula. Okay, cool. So you're saying you feel frustrated because you want your math teacher to not assign so much homework. Well, yeah. Okay. That's the first step. And the second is, and this is how we teach it here, is to really, because we have so many teen mentors, right? And so now you got these teens going out and helping other teens with these tools, but nobody wants to be given advice. No one like person running around, hey, I got these tools. You should do this. You should do that. So we've eradicated the word should out of our vocabulary here, right? And we try to speak through experience, strength, and hope. And so when my daughter is coming to me frustrated about this thing, I rarely use the terms, cool, well, you should this, or have you thought about this? I'll say, because once I start using the word you with a younger person, there's that immediate sense of potential, defensiveness. But if the entire time I'm speaking in I statements, that helps keep their guard down. So, oh, wow, yeah, when I was your age, I went through something similar. And what I found for myself was so on and so on and so on. So those two formula, that formula of, giving the experience of understanding and empathy, identifying, do you feel this because you want, because there's a want or a need there. Do you feel this because you want this? That's a helpful formula that works probably 90% of the time, not every time, depending on the situation. And then I go into, okay, how can I speak from I statements to share experience, strength, and hope, rather than giving advice or telling someone how they need to think. And what that does is it maintains the agency and sovereignty of the kid, who then feels empowered to transform themselves from the inside out, rather than doing things because they're told. I think we can all,
Mhm.
as once being kids, know that feeling of being told what's up by our parents, and it creates sometimes, at least for me, inner tension of like, oh, do I agree with that or not? Should I just do it because I'm being told? All of that stuff, which is a completely different energetic framework than sovereignty and agency to be able to come to my own growth in my own terms.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I was thinking when you were saying that was that's helpful for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy and less shoulds and more I statements. I know that oftentimes, the intention is good of wanting to help the person or solve the problem or help them find the solution. But it's like, that's not our job. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's our job is to hear and empathize. And like you said, repeat back to them what you're hearing, explain a situation where you maybe have gone through something, a lot of I statements. Here's what I would do. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I did. And, then it's, I think, great for kids and just a great human lesson in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then we invite them rather than command them, which has a completely different energy to it. I
Mm-hmm.
heard it said that our goal as teachers who serve isn't to wake people up. It's to create a sense of spiritual nourishment so that when they wake up on their own, there's spiritual nourishment and a breakfast, if you will, waiting for them to continue on their path. So it's not about
Mm-hmm.
changing other people. It's about laying the tools at their feet that give them the capacity to change themselves, because that has a different level of stickiness to it and a different level of strength to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And one more question, because I'm curious. Like, when kids come to your facility, to your location, do they have parents that have gone to like a Dr. Joe retreat, or are there like kids just struggling with certain things and they Google you and they're like, you got to go to this? Like, are the parents oftentimes learning a lot through their kids'
Oh yeah.
experience?
Oh yeah.
Or like, what's the journey of a kid? Or maybe I think of too, like church or whatever, church events. It's like, oh, my friends are there, so I want to go. Is that kind of the scenario too? Or
Some of
how
it.
do these,
Some of
yeah,
it.
how do these kids
Everyone,
come there?
there's a lot of different entry points, right? There's a lot of high schoolers who come here for 501c3 nonprofit volunteer hours that is about college resume building. That's a great driver for them, right? And we figured out how to make volunteering super fun and super meaningful and fulfilling on the inside rather than some of the other opportunities out there. So a lot come in through that. A lot come in because they love creativity and art, particularly the high schoolers. A lot of our new students, what happens is I'll receive a text from a upset parent whose kid just got suspended again and they don't know what to do, and the therapist can't see them for another 3 weeks, and that's just going to be client intake and their insurance doesn't cover it, and how quickly can our kid come in, and we don't have much money, how much does it cost? And I say, your kid can come today and we have a scholarship program to take care of your kid so they can come for free. We've turned away 0 kids in 9 years. I'm really
Wow.
proud of that fact. And
Yeah.
and then the parents come and they sit in the back of class, and you have the ones that are already the aware observer, their thoughts already conscious, if you will, in the practice, and no Dr. Joe. And for them, oh my goodness gracious, they can't get enough of it. They love it because it's like kind of what we were all thinking. Okay, how come? Let's take this and make it available to kids. So we've figured out how to language that and really make that resonate. For the ones that haven't really had that experience yet, or they're earlier on the path of their awakening or transformation, they're in the back writing notes, fervorously, and because this is adult grade stuff. This is, it's really, we're not pulling any punches or dumbing it down in any way, rather just shifting the languaging to make it more resonant with someone who's in Gen Z or Gen A.
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember when I first started doing this work, I was just like it just unlocked
It's a
something
life
in me.
changer.
I was hungry and I just couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I assumed there were some parents that are getting the benefit of their kids being involved in this program. I'm going to link all the link to your book and that program that your high school kids built, and how people that are living in LA can get connected with you and all the things. And I just feel like you're doing such great work in this world. It's really beautiful, Rafael. Is it what else? What is your moonshot? What is your goal that you're reaching towards? Like, what are you just like hungry after now, whether it's personal, professional? What is the thing that really drives you?
Yeah, it's a very, very specific goal. And it's the goal of our entire team and ecosystem here. And the goal is 1 million conscious youth. Conscious as defined as a person who knows they are the aware observer of their thoughts and not their thoughts. Now, it's different than intelligent. It's this practice. And a person can know that truth, but not practice it enough to actually be living from that perspective. And no one lives there all the time. I slide back in and out. It's how it is. But to know what it means to practice awareness, we'll call that conscious. So we're shooting for 1 million conscious youth. We're in the low thousands, but with this platform, that's why the high schoolers wanted to build this platform to begin spreading this message and movement of consciousness. We're looking for support. We're reaching out to the world saying, if you believe in this cause, we feel confident we've got a playbook and a blueprint to unfold over the next 5 years, including this platform, this is now California state accepted English curriculum. I teach it to foster youth that are in high school as their English class, right? So we have a curriculum that can go in schools, and it's already in a bunch of schools here in California. So that's our path, 1 million conscious youth. And, there's never been a time in this world where that could be more possible. If 8.5 million people can like this dog video on TikTok, whatever it is, we can spread the message of consciousness. It isn't that hard to learn for a person who has the open mind to absorb the lesson. And we're just finding it's spreading like wildfire. And it's a very exciting time. It's going to be very exciting. This mission might take 3, 5, even 10 years. And that's okay, because at the end, when what we have is a platform with 1 million conscious youth together, my intuitive sense tells me a lot of beautiful change and societal transformation for the better can occur through a community of youth that are conscious. It's a powerful thing, and this is going to be my life's journey.
Yeah, 1 million conscious youth. And yeah, I'm cheering you on. For those listening, get connected with Rafael, get the book, go on the website. If you live in the area, go visit his facility, tell your friends,
please come visit,
share this space. Yeah, I'll have to come visit as well when I'm in California. I really look forward to it. Yeah, I'm just so moved. Great work. This is so awesome and so needed. And I'm excited for the day that we get to celebrate your 1 million milestone. And I think, like you said, what a great time to be alive. What a great time to actually make this possible because of ways that you're throwing bigger rocks in the pond, let's say, by making this curriculum or making this available online or through a book on Amazon. I know that I'm excited for the day that you reach that goal. I'm going to link everything to connect with Rafael, social media, all the stuff in the description. It was great to talk with you today, and thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or were inspired by it or something resonated with you, do me a favor and share this episode with a friend, someone that you think might enjoy this episode as well. That's the ultimate compliment and the best way to make this podcast ripple out into the world of others. And also, you can leave us a review up to 5 stars wherever you're listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you at the next episode. I appreciate you.